Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with it's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org. Consequence and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, for checking out the series. Of course, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, just like this one, new and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Makes it a great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover some new ones. You can grab us anywhere you get your podcast from as well. That's a Spotify, Apple Podcast, NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, or of course, right here on YouTube for the video versions. Anywhere you get your podcast from, you can subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. And that's me, Kyle Meredith. Today, I'm so excited about this episode. Tami Stronach and Greg Steinbruner are here. Tami, you'll remember as the childlike empress from the NeverEnding Story, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. She retired more or less from acting right after that role and went on to do other things in her life creatively, became a dancer, married Greg later on, and who was himself a creative in the movie industry, and recently decided that maybe it was time to act again. They wrote a script together and made a movie. It's called Man and Witch, the Dance of a Thousand Steps, in theaters and out now. And we get to talk all about this, making the journey from the Neverending Story and not acting anymore, and where the script came from and how it was inspired by the Neverending Story and 80s fantasy films. It actually tells the story of, it says, when a lonely goatherd discovers that he has been cursed at birth to never take a wife, he makes a bargain with a reclusive witch to reverse the spell, only to find that if he can't complete her 3 impossible tasks, he will never find true love. There are nice send-ups to some of the great fairy tale style movies of the past. You also get a little bit of Monty Python, a little bit of Shrek stuff in there. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about the costuming. We're going to talk about the dancing. We're, of course, going to be talking about the 40th anniversary of the NeverEnding Story and where their journey might go now that this movie is out in the world. So let's get into it. We're talking Man and Witch, the Dance of a Thousand Steps. It's Kyle Meredith with Tami Stronach and Greg Steinbruner.
Hey, what's going on?
It's great to see you both on here. Right, the congratulations, right? Man and Witch, it's happened. It's out in the world. It's finally
It's
here.
going. It's finally here.
Finally.
It's finally out there instead of just actually like right here. Yeah.
Right. Seriously, what a journey it's been actually just to watch you all, even from this, from Twitter and the internet and everything, and just seeing all of this happen. And knowing what's gone into it. I would love to hear, though, where did this idea actually start to hatch for you all?
I think so. Greg and I were working together in theater, and Greg had this idea that maybe there should be a last hurrah for me where I do come back to acting on screen, and everything just sort of like weirdly converged. So the initial pitch was a 10-minute short. So who's going to say no to that? Like, sure, yeah, let's do a 10-minute short.
Well, look, right. So I've told this story maybe in other places, but I'll just sort of give you the high level version. We were walking by, the Spotify ad, and there's a huge Falcor painted on a full city block next to our house. And I'm looking at that. We're getting coffee, and Tammy's, taking goofy shots in front of the Falcor. And I thought to myself, we've been making shows in New York, for family audiences and stuff. And I thought to myself, wow, if there's so much juice in that, story still, that a massive company is making a huge bet on like that iconography, then I wonder if there are more people out there who are like maybe interested in what Tammy's doing now. So we kind of floated some trial balloons, and it turned out that a lot of people were interested in what she's doing now. And she started going to fan conventions and realized like there's a massive, just love for the NeverEnding Story and interest in the possibility of her coming back to acting. So that felt validating, and I didn't want to get crazy. So I was like, Tami, why don't we start with a short film, and we'll make a short, like 10-minute film. You'll get your chops back, and we'll learn how to make a movie that we've never done before.
And the thing just snowballed. Like, it was just like, honestly, like we've just been on this ball that's been rolling so fast, so crazy, trying not to fall off of it. and it's great. Like I feel really grateful. Like the push, like I just feel like this wind has kind of swept up and just keeps pushing us forward. And my
And then
job and
sometimes it
his
turns
job,
around and pushes us
sometimes it
backwards.
pushes us back. Yeah, but once you're going, you gotta like finish. So it turned from a 10-minute into a feature. It was going to be.
Well, I wrote, yeah. So I sat down to write the story, and someone said you should make that into a feature, and I did, and that happened really fast, which is very unusual for, I think, for any writer really, but especially for one who hasn't written a lot of scripts. I've written some screenplays, but not like professionally. So, a couple months later, I was looking at this story and it was there, and I gave it to Tami on her birthday. I was like, I did it. I wrote the feature. She was like, this is really good.
And
now
then I was like, oh my God, this is really good. Like, this isn't actually a script I want to do. Like, I'm not just being nice, like I was like, this is really, really good. We should make this. And then we got the funding. I mean, everything just kept happening. It was so crazy.
I do think that a lot of it has a couple of things. One is, there is a certain kind of person who really craves a certain sort of old-fashioned storytelling, which is just more about character, more about heart, more about earnestness, true emotion. Not to knock anything that the big leagues Hollywood is doing, because that's obviously an incredibly, accomplished universe of things that they make. But I just wanted to get back to kind of old storytelling, that of the kinds of movies that I fell in love with going to the movies.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what was in the script. And I think when certain people looked at that script, they were like, oh, this is that kind of story. And a lot of people just kind of got into it because of that.
Well, and then there was the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So that was really problematic in so many ways. But then all these really, really big actors were so bored because they couldn't work and they hadn't left their house in months and months and months. And so they were
Good
like,
time to be pitching
what's
projects.
this weird script? Like I haven't even looked at a script in like 6 months. Like, I guess I'll open it. Yeah. And so it was just so crazy. Like we've had the best of luck, sometimes the worst of luck, but like a roller coaster of a journey. And for sure, like, need to feel enormous gratitude for like the actors that signed on. Stirling Castle, we would have never shot at Stirling Castle. The pandemic killed them. They had no tourists, no visitors. Normally they would charge an exorbitant amount, but they were like, I guess we'll
take it for a week.
Whatever you can pay us for the week, and you get the seat of what used to be the Scottish Parliament, for your film. Yeah. So it was all these bizarre, just like it. I don't think this film should have been made. I don't know how this film was made. We're very determined, and every time we hit a wall, we just wait for a really long time and just kind of tap, and then eventually we find some secret like under tunnel. We start digging, so it's a combination of us just being so stubborn and incredible luck.
Yeah. I mean, the universe just, it really does. It sounds like it opened up for this movie, and I'm so happy it did. Watching it and seeing those, like, it feels like there are little send-up moments in there. There are little Monty Python moments, or, and obviously with the ogre, you're like a little bit of Shrek in there. And you talk about like not having these type of movies. And you're right, these type of movies aren't there. When you're writing it, when you're putting it together, are those, I don't know, Easter eggs, tributes, are those obvious to you?
Yeah, so one of the things, I mean, obviously I was a huge Monty Python fan. It's really all my friends and I did. We just sat around and like traded Monty Python lines or Princess Bride lines or whatever. So that stuff is very conscious of sort of trying to capture those Easter eggs. And then when I watched the film that we put together, like all the way at the end of the process, and the director Michael Hines is like, I don't want to necessarily just sort of try to make a film that looks like that, right? I want to make a contemporary film, which we did. But it's funny now when I watch it, there's so many more Easter eggs that I didn't know we were even doing.
Because it's like unconscious, like the dog from Labyrinth
is exactly the same kind of dog as the dog we ended up. And maybe somebody knew that. Maybe somebody in the casting. I don't know.
No, it's funny. I think you just absorb all that stuff. So it's a combo. Some things are, I mean, obviously the whole audience going, wait, what? Yeah. That's conscious. Right. But there were other things that weren't.
Yeah, no, there were some surprise Easter eggs that I didn't realize we put in there that we obviously, got from some inspiration from something.
It just makes it
Pretty
so much
derivative. I mean,
magical. The whole thing
I
just
think it
becomes more
makes it
magical.
fun.
Yeah, right. I will ask Greg, does he have the haircut because he's cursed, or is he cursed because he has that haircut?
I'm not. I have many. I have many beautiful things and blessings in my life. I've never been blessed with the best dude bro hair, right? So in a way,
oh my God, when they gave him that haircut.
So they send this very, very talented stylist, like she's hot stuff in Scotland, and they're like, we're sending you the best person, the snips in Scotland. So she comes in, we're all masked up and we're in the thing. So she gives me this haircut, and she fluffs it out, blows. This is my real hair, right? And I was crushed. I was like, oh my God, I'm finally starring in a movie, and I'm gonna look like that, But I was like, can we at least can you please just make my hair not like my real hair, right? I don't want to be like
gray. So we sprayed it.
Because I was, I'm not a super vain person, but even I was like, I can't look like that in my own movie.
I think the salad bowl haircut is coming back. You just put a bowl on your head, and you trim around the salad bowl.
Beth and Christine are convinced that when this movie goes out, that the goatherd is going to be like a big winner.
That's going to be it.
So here's the Easter egg that.
But thank you for that question.
So if you look at Greg's haircut when he was like 8,
it's exactly that.
It's haircut. The exact same haircut.
I have a picture of myself with that haircut from like 1970.
I had that haircut when I was 8.
I had that haircut. It's all right. I had the haircut. I did.
Yeah.
So Tammy, for you then, with the witch, I mean, the witch is her own. She's got her own issues, right? Like she has this confidence. She has this confidence and this great sense of self, but even like how did you want to play her too? Because I love that we have this idea of the witch in these stories and what she's capable of and what she represents, and we get so many more different layers with her this time around.
Thank you. I'm so happy you think that. She's just so bruised. The world's been so mean to her. I have a whole backstory for her about just sort of the ways in which she's been bruised. And so, for her, she's all bark, and she's actually so soft underneath. She's so kind underneath. But, she's a witch, and people aren't nice to witches. So she's had to just put on so many layers of protection, and she's hiding. She lives in a quasi invisible house. You can only see part of it. It's all invisible, and most of the labor of her life is to invisibilize herself so that she doesn't get whacked. And then having the courage to be seen is, really terrifying for her. And then when we finally see her, she's, much, much softer than anyone expected.
Yeah.
I love her. She's a good character.
It's one of the things we talked about when, to your original question about when did we decide we were going to do this? So the main question that Tammy had when I was like, hey, do you want to be in a movie? She was like, yeah, but I want to play like a multi-layered, complicated, rich character with a real arc.
Yes.
If it's going to be, can she still bring it? Then I want to show that I can do this at a high level and do something that is, complicated and rich and difficult to pull off. And I was like, okay, well, here's the role. And she's like, that's going to be really hard.
Okay.
She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I think you can do it.
But also it was sort of hilarious because when you're a child actor, there's all these videos of well, what do they look like now? That's sort of the big curiosity. And I'm like, so the big reveal in Man and Witch, I'm shriveled and angry, and I have horrible hair. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's how people
what
are
they're
gonna
Yeah.
really respond to me coming back, so but it didn't matter. It was the story. The story was what mattered, and the journey of the character. And it was so exciting to play such a rich character. But it was funny. I was like, oh, we'll see
Well,
how
also,
this is received.
It's also, with all of the heart in it, it's also a comic character, and that's
Yeah.
like 10 times harder than drama, right? So I also raised the bar there. I was like, Tami, not only do you have to be dramatic, you also have to be very funny in this film, And she's like, oh, great.
But you also get to incorporate your dancing, and I know that became a big part of your life. Like to
That was
incorporate
such
that,
a relief.
yeah, not just in the script, but for that to
Yeah.
be such a big part of it. And coming up with the dance, I mean, did you all create that yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I have to give props to Chase Brock, who is a friend choreographer of mine. The film went through sort of a two incarnations, and he would choreograph the original dance for the original kind of version of it, and that was a very different dance. It was not a partner dance. It was like different sections from like all different cultures, and he did an amazing job. And then he wasn't able to come in and do the choreography for the film, and then Michael Hines wanted me to choreograph it because he thought that I could kind of capitalize on being in the room with Greg, and so it ended up being a very, very different dance. But I did use like two sections of Chase Brock's. I used the finger dance, which I loved, and this little Irish jig that was part of the old one. And then everything else I choreographed. So, and I asked Chase if he wanted choreography credit, and he said no. And so I'm just saying it right here, right now, because he did a great job on those two sections, and he was so generous, and he let me incorporate them into the rest of the dance that I did choreograph.
Michael had an awesome prompt for us when we were thinking about, he was like, think about this as we were sort of talking about what the dance should be. He was like, I want it to be beautiful. I don't want it to just be a joke that it's a dance of 1,000 steps. Like, I want people to really feel that there's like true emotion in the dance, and it's ridiculous.
Right. And that
Which
ending?
is kind of tonally the whole film,
Right.
to be honest with you.
Felt right.
It's a very weird, hard tone to straddle. Like, how can this be like silly and goofy
and matter.
and emotionally resonant? Like, you usually have to pick one or the other. And for some reason, that just felt like the right tone for this project. And so it's very delicate how to straddle that.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, and flashing back, I mean, for this Kismet style to land on the 40th anniversary of the NeverEnding Story, like you talk about
That's
those
also
moments.
luck.
Dumb luck.
That's also luck, because there was the
We wanted it out much sooner.
the strike. The strike was on. We couldn't talk about it. It took such a long time to resolve. We were, really like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do now? So again, like, weird that it just landed.
When it became clear that connection was going to be a part of the release plan, it became obvious that that's what we should have been trying to do.
It's better to be
lucky than good. That's really the message of the whole movie, right? It's better to be lucky than good. Greg Steinbruner story. But that part of it was when we started to get into last fall and realized, wait a minute.
If we're gonna wait anyway, if we have to wait anyway, this makes sense.
Yeah, and obviously, a big draw for Fathom Events was, look, we're releasing the NeverEnding Story as part of our classic series. Like, it would make so much sense to partner with you guys on Man and Witch and make that, part of the party. But that was, we thought we were going to be done with this film a lot sooner. I would love to say that was a, strategic genius on our part, but it was just luck.
And I think that, a film like ours, it's very unusual for it to get a theatrical release as an independent film, independent fantasy film. Who's crazy enough to make one of those? So just the fact that we had the tie to the NeverEnding Story and it let us come into theaters, like, again, it's just this incredible stroke of luck. And so I just really want to encourage people to see it in the theater, because it's so much better in the theater. I promise you. And it's like, and it's especially with a comedy, like if just somebody laughs, then it like makes other people laugh, and it becomes this communal experience.
I don't know if we're even allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it. So one of the things that just happened last week is we decided to do a double feature with the NeverEnding Story.
Oh yeah, we can say that.
On the anniversary of the release of the NeverEnding Story, and then the U.S. premiere of Man and Witch is going to be like right afterwards at the same theater.
Wow.
In New York. So we're literally like opening Man and Witch in New York on the day, that NeverEnding Story released 40 years ago.
It's crazy. So if you come on July 21st to Union Square, they're just regular ticket prices. You just get a regular ticket. You can spend the whole day with us.
Yeah.
Because we'll be doing NeverEnding Story and a Q&A, and then there'll be a little like lobby time, hang out, step and repeat, and then Man and Witch. We'll do a little pre-show for that. And people are coming in costume.
Yeah, people are dressing up, Contented Kingdom chic.
Either
awesome.
Ren Fair or your favorite character for the 80s, anything fantasy, just silly, fun, feel good.
We did that at the premiere in London a couple weeks ago, and because it was part of a fantasy con. And so the people from the con were already like all blinged out in fantasy garb or 80s cosplay or whatever it was. And so everyone just came to the screening in their duds. We had like a medieval dinner. It was awesome. But it's so much more fun.
It's so much more
It's much more fun to sit in a movie theater full of dressed up people like wearing like medieval garb.
And or like if you're chic, which a lot of New Yorkers are, you can just do witchy chic.
Yeah, witchy chic.
Like modern, contemporary witchy chic, which is probably how I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Well, I love watching you all in this. I hope now that you've unsealed the bottle once again, that this isn't the last of acting. And what there's, I mean, they're talking about the remake of the NeverEnding Story. Like, do you see yourself continuing further on now that you're back?
I would love to keep acting. This secret is that it's a lot harder to dance in your 50s than it was in your 20s. I don't know if people know that. I wasn't aware, but
not for me. I'm a very good dancer.
It feels very rebellious to insert myself into the acting space as a middle-aged woman, and I love that rebelliousness. So I would love to do more acting, and it feels organic with also the sort of closing the chapter on a career in dance and investigating some new ways to tell stories. So it'd be great.
And the Paper Canoe Company. I mean, that's what you guys are. That's what pushing this through, right?
Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic that if people do respond to Man and Witch the way we hope, and it's a specific kind of audience, it's maybe a niche audience, but we think it's a big enough, it's a broad niche of people who would be interested in this kind of film. We're prepared to iterate on this world.
We're walking around with our coffees brainstorming on sequels. So we have ideas.
There's definitely a roadmap for sequels. So we'll see how we do at the end of July. Yeah. But we're happy to keep going because we think people are falling in love with the world, a little bit, which is sort of what we hoped. But we're cautiously optimistic that will continue to happen. So we're ready to do it. Obviously it's a tough landscape, right? We're an independent company. Paper Canoe Company is Tami and me, right? Those
this
are
is
the
our
only
office.
People. we have lots of good people working on the release of the film, but at the end of the day, Paper Canoe Company is still sort of us, which is a high bar for releasing a major motion picture. So we're
And it's a very unusual thing. I mean, I feel like it's really fan driven. Like this isn't coming from the top down. It's really coming from like going to cons and people being like, come on, just make something. And I'm like, how hard that is, right?
No.
It's amazing any movie gets made ever.
It is. I mean, you're going to hear that from Ridley Scott,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on this. Seriously. It's so great to see you back on screen. It's so great to see what you've both done on this and to make this happen. Seriously, congratulations. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it. I'm so glad we got to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. Really, really appreciate you.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All three of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.